What's up, guys? This is Felix from Giant Lifestyle. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to fill out a real estate contract, a real estate purchase and sale agreement so that you can wholesale a house. So one of my most popular videos to date is real estate wholesaling for beginners with no money, how I did my very first deal where I made $6,000. Now, this was all the way back in 2015. My first deal took 11 months for me to find the deal all the way up until putting under contract and actually going to the closing table. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how to fill out a contract, how to read what's in the contract so you understand what and how everything works. A lot of people comment on, where do you get contracts? What do you do if you can't find a buyer? How do you fill this out? Everything. So, number one, if you're trying to learn wholesaling, I recommend you do one of two things. Either you dedicate a few hours, actually more than a few hours. I taught myself wholesaling because I literally had no money when I first started, and that's how a lot of people discover wholesaling. They literally have no money when first starting out, or invest into some sort of training, whether it's a book, whether it's a course. I do have a book down in the description below this video. Also, in all of my real estate videos, it's a book with my buddy Nasser. He's the one that I learned real estate wholesaling from, and he basically shows you step by step how to go out there and wholesale your first house. The book is only $38 and it will literally show you everything A to Z. Now, without further ado, we're going to go in how to actually fill out your first contract. If you guys have any other questions about real estate wholesaling, go ahead and put them down in the description below and I'll do my best to answer them. So this is the first contract. You can go on Google and find a contract. You can go on BiggerPockets and find a contract, or you can go to a real estate attorney and have them draw you up a contract. But these contracts are very simple. It's not too much to overthink. You're not going to go to jail for filling out a contract wrong. You're not going to have big fines. Most of these people that you enter into a contract with, I would say 95%, just want to get out of their situation. If they're seriously motivated, they're not in the position or have, any means to sue you. If you can't buy the house, who can? So basically, as you can see, it says contract to purchase real estate. So that this contract is dated. So you'll basically put the date that you're going to sign the contract. You put the buyer's name, offers to purchase from seller. You put the seller's name. The following describe the real estate together with all improvements thereon and all appurtenant rights located at address, city, state, zip, county of. In consideration of the sum as earnest money due completion of inspection period, seller agrees. So basically, this is the money that you're going to put down to basically lock the property under contract. If you don't buy the property, you can forfeit this to the seller. And I believe on my first deal, I put down somewhere between $10 and $20. This is just as a deposit to the seller. If a seller asks for anything crazy, if you're buying a property, say, to live in, or if you're buying a property for an investment, a down payment to put a property under contract can range anywhere between 1% and 10%, if not more. But typically, as a deposit, you're going to take a bigger deposit from your buyer. But with the seller, this is just to put the property to almost make the contract active. So it could be between 10, 20, $100, nothing crazy. There's people who have done, as small as $1. The purchase price is to be payable in cash at closing. So you could put this at whatever you agree for, with the seller as far as the purchase price. Now, this is not you giving the seller cash. This is the buyer that you sell this contract to. So the conditions of this purchase are as follows. So these are the clauses that allow you to be a wholesaler. Property is sold as is conditioned with no warranties made by the seller. Seller will make buyer aware of any known facts that affect the value of the property. So you're literally buying this as is. Whatever is the purchase price that you agree with, you're basically selling this position. You're selling this contract to the buyer. You're not making any improvements. You're not fixing anything. You're selling your position as a middleman to the buyer. Seller and tenant, if any, will make property accessible to show partners, lenders, inspectors, appraisers, contractors prior to closing. Now, one of the biggest questions is people will say, well, do I tell this person that I'm going to be wholesaling the property? There's a few ways to do it. You can basically tell them that you're a middleman and you're going to be getting a fee. I would say that, hey, these are my partners. I work with them. They're going to be the ones paying for the house in cash. I'm not going to be doing it. I'm going to be getting a finder's fee or, an upfront payment for helping them find this property. But keep it real, because at closing, they're going to see that you get paid. So you don't want to say that, oh, yes, I'm buying the property, because in the end, you're not buying the property, you're middlemaning the property. But if you can help them get out of their situation, because most people who are motivated to sell you their house for pennies on the dollar, they're not worried about, if you make a few $1,000s. Now, if you're going to be out there making 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 on the assignment, they might feel a certain way, and you might have to do something called a double close. But don't wreck your mind about that. Let's just talk about you assigning a contract. So let them know that they're your partners. They are, working with you to help you close this deal, buy it from the seller, and for you to get a fee at closing. The next thing that a lot of people confuse themselves about is if buyer is unable to complete the purchase for any reason, the earnest money deposit shall be forfeited to the seller as total liquidated damage, and buyer is released from any further obligation under this contract. So at this very moment, you are the buyer. So if for any reason, if you can't find a buyer to sell this contract to, because you're going to be assigning this contract, say you put the property under contract for $85,000. Now you're not going to be typing this in, you're going to be writing it in, so there won't be this space underneath. But if for any reason, you put it under contract for $85,000, for example, me, the first deal I did, the property was worth around $230,000, $240,000. After the guy bought it from me, fixed it up, and ended up selling it, I think he sold it for like $210,000. But if I wasn't able to sell it to find a buyer, I could have basically forfeited out of the contract and literally would have gave up $20. So if for any reason I cannot purchase this property, because at this very time and place, I'm the buyer. I haven't yet assigned this contract. So if for any reason I can't buy the property, I will be released from any other further obligation under this contract. If seller cannot provide clear title, buyer will be released from any further obligation under this contract. So if there's liens, if the title's cloudy, if there's a mortgage that can't be paid off with the purchase price, if there's anything on the title that doesn't make it a free and clear title, then you're released. Buyer shall select closing agent. So make sure you're selecting a closing agent, basically a title company that is familiar with real estate investors. They know that you're a wholesaler, you're assigning this contract to a cash buyer, and you're going to get an assignment fee. This purchase contract is assignable, meaning I could sell this contract if it's under contract for $85,000, like I did with my first deal. I could sell it for $91,000, and we can make another video if you guys are interested on how to fill out and deal with buyers. But this purchase contract is assignable. This agreement is subject to final inspection and approval of the property by the buyer 10 business days after date this contract is received by buyer. So that means that I could go back in the property 10 days after this is signed, but this is almost, double as to what this is, meaning that, prior to closing, I could bring by my partners, my contractor, anybody that I feel I have to bring by to show this property to, I can. Taxes to be prorated, any previous tax years to be paid by seller. All attorney, closing fees, and customary costs shall be paid by the buyer. So if they're back on taxes, that's going to come out of the seller's check. I remember when I did my first deal, I told the sellers I was going to pay them $85,000, and they actually, after mortgage, back taxes, they ended up walking away with somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000. They had $70,000 between back taxes and the mortgage that was very close to going into foreclosure. The property was in shambles, and if they didn't sell it to me, it was going to get taken by the bank, and they were going to walk away with nothing. And then closing date shall be on or before. You can put 30 to 45 or 30 to 60 days from the date signed below by seller. Seller grants any extension needed to clear title or to complete closing documentation. Title to the above described real estate to be conveyed by warranty deed or other customary instrument of transfer. Title is to be free, clear, and encumbered, free of any county, city, and federal liens. All liens against the property shall be paid at closing by seller. So basically this means that the property has to be free and clear. It can't have any liens on it, can't have any judgments on it. If they do have liens on it, say, they had, maybe they hired somebody to do a roofing job, they didn't pay the contractor, then the contractor put like a mechanic's lien for, say, $5,000, $10,000. When we go to closing, that has to get paid off by the seller's cut. This offer, when accepted, comprises the entire agreement of purchase and seller, and it is agreed that no other representations have been made. So if when we sign this contract, you can't have gone out and signed another contract with another buyer. And then also additional terms if applicable. So, if I want to put something else in there, that isn't one of these, other terms, 1, 2, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 3, 4, 5, then you could put them right here. Date it, seller, seller, buyer, buyer, print, print. So one-page contract, doesn't need to be fancy, and that's that. So let's go into the second contract. They're both basically the same thing. Some have a few different words, but we're going to run through this one a bit quicker. I don't want to make this video too long. So standard purchase and sale agreement. This agreement is made on basically the date that we're signing this contract. Again, if you guys want to learn more in depth on how to do a real estate deal, check the first link in the description below. It's a $37 book or $38 book that's going to show you this business A to Z. So seller, buyer, and/or sign. Seller agrees to sell and buyer agrees to buy the following described real property together with all improvements and fixtures at the personal property described below. So put the address. Same thing like last time. This is just to basically make the contract alive as earnest money in consideration of the sum, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 bucks, as earnest money due upon completion of the inspection period. So once I looked at the property, we're going to sign this. I'm going to give you 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 bucks to make this contract kind of live. The purchase price is to be just call it $85,000 payable in cash at closing. And again, you're not buying the property. You're selling this contract to somebody else. Prorations, impounds, and security deposits. Loan interest, property taxes, insurance, rents shall be prorated as the date of closing. All security deposits shall be transferred to buyer at closing. All impound accounts for taxes and insurance are included in the purchase price and shall be transferred to the buyer at closing. Any shortage in these accounts shall be charged to the seller at closing. Basically, just reiterating what we went over on the last contract that, if they're back on taxes, if they're back on anything, it's coming out of the seller's cut. Closing date and transfer of title. This transaction shall close on or before. Put a date. Closing will be held at whatever the title agency is called. And seller agrees to transfer marketable title free, clear of encumbrances, except those listed, and pay any required state taxes or stamps required to record deed of mortgage. Again, this has to be a free and clear title. There can be no back taxes, no judgments, no liens, nothing of that sort. Successors and assignees. The terms and conditions of this contract shall bind all successors, hires, I mess up that word all the time, administrators, trustees, executors, and assignees of the respective parties. Access. Seller agrees that buyer may advertise property and have access during reasonable hours to show property to others. So I could bring by my partners, my lenders, my contractors. I could bring other people to the property to show them. I don't have to tell them why. Another thing is when I'm bringing buyers by, I always go with them. So I don't want the buyer to try to talk to the seller and kind of work out a deal. Now, it's good to build relationships with your buyers so they understand that you're a wholesaler, you're bringing them deals, but you never know if somebody you don't know might come by and they might try to, cut you out the deal, which actually has happened to me before. They try to cut me out the deal and talk directly to the seller. So, inspection. Buyer shall have X amount of days from effective date within which to have such inspections of the property performed as buyer shall desire, and utility service shall be made available by seller during the inspection. And buyer shall be responsible for prompt payment for such inspections, repair of damage to restoration of property resulting for such inspections, and if buyer determines in buyer's sole discretion that the condition of the property is not acceptable to buyer, buyer may cancel this contract by delivering written notice of such election to seller prior to the expiration of the inspection period. If buyer timely cancels this contract, the deposit shall be immediately returned to the buyer. Thereupon, buyer and seller shall be released from further obligations under this contract. Basically saying, if for any reason I can't buy this property, I can forfeit the contract and you're not going to get in trouble. People, for some reason, think that if you back out of a contract, you're going to get in some serious legal trouble. That is not true. So then we have an additional terms and conditions. Now, you can put any terms and conditions you want in here. You could look up other terms and conditions on YouTube, on Google, and you could put them in here. So property is sold as is condition with no warranties made by the seller. Seller will make buyer aware of any known facts that affect the value of the property. Seller and tenant, if any, will make the property accessible to show partners, lenders, inspectors, appraisers, and contractors. If buyer is unable to complete the purchase for a reason, the earnest money deposit shall be forfeited to seller as total liquidated damage and buyer's release from any further obligation under this contract. If seller cannot provide clear title, buyer will be released from any further obligation under this contract. Buyer shall select closing agent. Purchase contract is assignable, meaning I can sell this piece of paper to a buyer. This agreement is subject to final inspection and approval of the property by the buyer 10 business days after the date this contract is received by the buyer. Buyer closing date shall be on or before days from the date signed below by seller. Seller grants any accession need to clear title or to complete closing documentation. Title to the above described real estate to be conveyed by warranty, deed, or other customary instrument of transfer. Titles to be free, clear, and encumbered for any county, city, federal liens. All liens against the property shall be paid at closing by the seller. Buyer pays all closing costs, not you, the buyer who's bringing the cash. This offer, when accepted, compromises the entire agreement of the purchaser and seller and is agreed that no other basically no other parties, just you and the seller, are on this deal. Additional terms if you want: seller, buyer, date, and there you go. So that's how you fill out an entire contract. If you want to know how to fill out an assignment contract and how to deal with being a wholesaler to assign the property, let me know. If you guys have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to also hit the like button. Again, if you guys want to learn exactly how to do this, pick up Flipping Houses Like Burgers 2.0 by Nasser. It's a buddy of mine. I posted a few videos of him on my channel already, and he's literally going to show you for like $37, $38 exactly how to close your first real estate wholesale deal, how to talk to sellers, how to talk to buyers, how to get motivated leads, everything A to Z. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.